Namaste Acharya ji. I'm Nandini Bajaj. I'm a second year undergraduate student from the Department of Geology and Geophysics. And I have a follow up question to the previous question, which is you mentioned about consciousness, and you said that how we should not associate ourselves with our identity, as in me being a daughter, a student, a friend. So, how do we identify who we are in reality? As in, since we were born, I was a daughter, my parents took care of me, and then I made friends. So, I was a friend. Then I was a sister, I was a student. So, in all this chaos, I may say, how do we identify ourselves? What exactly is consciousness?
That which is making you ask this question right now, that which is hearing and would respond very soon, that is consciousness. That without which this world itself does not exist. That is consciousness. About these identities that we are born with or start assuming later on through the course of life, they are shallow things. Sometimes we need to carry them just to make practical life a little smooth, a little efficient. Makes sense to carry your ID card if you are to enter the examination hall. No, you can't say there, I am nobody and I don't have an identity. You want to cast your vote, you need to carry your voter ID proof and such things. You cannot say, I do not exist, I am none of my identities. What is India? I am not an Indian, I am not a human being. If you say all those things, probably you would be existentially right, but you won't be able to cast your vote. So we have to take all the various identities with a pinch of salt. They are there, but they must be kept in their right place. They should never be allowed to encroach on the center, on the pure sanctum sanctorum of your life. No? And you know that. You never keep one identity very close to your heart anyway. When you go home, for example, you do not speak to your parents as a student of geology, do you? You don't do that. So we know how to keep the identities away for a while. The only problem is when we keep one identity aside, we supplant it, we replace it with another identity. That's what we keep doing. So we do not allow a pure and free space within, independent of identities. Even if the identities are to rotate, even if the identities keep shuffling and these things, one identity is always replaced by the other. The correction needed is keep all the identities a little out of the center of your life. There has to be an inner circle. And then there can be several concentric circles of various identities. Are you getting it? Let there be a lot of activity among those concentric circles. They may keep interacting with each other. One circle may dissolve into the other. One circle might expand. One circle might fall out. All those things can keep happening there. But at the center of your life, no identity should be present. Only then there is some freedom. Otherwise, you are not free at all. Otherwise, at all times, you are just carrying the burden of some responsibility, some identity or the other. Remember, there can be no identity without an accompanying code of conduct and responsibility. Practically, it is all right to behave as per the role you are playing at a particular moment. But irrespective of the number of roles that an actor plays, fundamentally that actor is none of those roles, right? An actor might play 40,000 roles, that's too much, but let's say 400 roles in his lifetime or her lifetime. Is the actor any of those roles? But those roles are good, those roles are fun. If you can be alive, aware, and wise, then playing those roles can be good fun. But you cannot say that you are one of those roles, otherwise, it will become absurd. Initially hilarious, later tragic. Imagine Amjad Khan living as Gabbar right till today. He has forgotten it was just a role, and he thinks Gabbar is his identity. Are you getting it? All the roles are just roles. You do not exist for the sake of those roles. They are incidental. A lot of those roles you never even asked for. They were always situational. Even the program you might have enrolled in is not necessarily the program that you always desired to be in. I can say for myself, I got a certain JE rank, and that JE rank determined the department I got into. In fact, while preparing for JE, I had thought nothing of departments. I got a certain rank in the UPSC Civil Services exam, and that rank determined the service that I got allotted to. And then you are supposed to be in that cadre all your life. You are supposed to be called a mechanical or civil engineer or whatever all your life. Do you see how coincidental these identities are? You never wanted to be born a woman. You never explicitly desired to be born in India or in your particular religion. But these things just happen. These are incidents. How much importance can one give to accidents? How seriously do you want to take something that just happened? And if such things that randomly happen are to be the core of your life, then tell me, where is freedom? Anything can randomly happen. Professor was kind enough to give a very topical introduction, and he talked of the virus COVID. Any of us wanted it to happen? COVID is life, it just happens. It just happens. And to be at the mercy of stray situations is to lead a very indignified life. Spirituality is an attempt, Vedanta is an attempt to give some dignity to life. Our friend referred to Atma, beautiful word, true self, that's Atma, true self. That's an attempt to give some dignity to this life that's otherwise always buffeted by situational forces. Hit around by circumstances. Like the shuttlecock, like the football. Always in motion, but never in command of its motion. Somebody else decides where it should go, for what purpose, with what speed, at what angle. No fun in that. The shuttlecock is never going to complain because it is not conscious. But we are conscious people, and if we live our lives like a shuttlecock or football, no fun.
I have a follow-up question to this. Uh, Okay, but sometimes I feel that people associate them with the identities to escape. As in, even in my mind now, I can think about is a void that I'm not able to fill, maybe, and I'm scared to go to the same void. Therefore, I see myself as a student, as a sister, as a daughter. So, what's the void? I mean, is it like our aim is to fill the void and we'll never be able to achieve that?
That void, I'm glad you are talking of it, that void is something very real. That void is a cry for help. Something urgently needs to be done. And because we are not able to do what is really needed, we do all kinds of other things and hope that the needful will get done on its own. It won't happen. See, this is how it happens. You want something, you do not know what you want. All you know is that you want. All you know is that you want, because there is a restlessness within. So I want something, I want something, I want something. But because we are not conscious enough, not spiritually educated enough, therefore we do not know what exactly we want. And when you do not know what exactly you want, you fall for any of your random wants. Any of your random wants that appear big and appealing and pressing at that particular moment. It's like this: I'm hungry. I'm hungry for some particular thing. Right? Let's say there is a deficiency in body. And the body is asking for that particular thing. But I do not know, because I do not know myself. So I do not know what I really want. So what do? I start eating whatsoever is available at that moment. That's how our desires take their course. That's how we make decisions in life often. There is a gap here, there is a hollow, a void here. I do not know what would really fill that void. So, because we do not know what we really want, we just look around. And whatsoever is appealing and relatively promising at that particular moment, we allow it entry in our lives. That's how we choose courses, that's how we choose jobs, that's how we choose partners, that's how we choose clothes, that's how we choose the movie to watch, that's how we choose the place to visit. None of our decisions are really informed decisions. We are groping around in the dark. There has to be follow-up. I'm sure this is not complete. I'm sure this cannot satisfy.
Yes. So it's just like getting used to that void and sticking to it so that somehow like you can make attempt to fill that.
Yes,
Is it?
yes, you have to remember this cardinal rule. Living with the void is far, far better than filling the void with unworthy stuff. And something special starts happening when you learn to honor the void, when you are not very afraid of the void, when you don't go nervous just thinking of the void. You start discounting the competitors vying to fill that void. Think of this. You have a certain need in your house. And the need is pretty urgent. You need to buy something. So all kinds of vendors will come running to your place. The moment this news spreads in the market that here we have a hungry, a needy customer facing an urgent situation, all kinds of sellers will rush to you. And they'll rush to you with all kinds of unworthy, nonsensical things, even spurious goods. And they'll come and they'll promise big, and they'll quote a high price. Why? Because they know that you are needy. They know that you do not like your situation of being needy. So they know that you will pay anything to get rid of your situation, right? When the world knows that you badly want to get rid of the void, when the world knows that you badly want to get rid of your inner situation, then it starts fooling you. It starts making you fake promises, it starts quoting you unreasonable prices, it starts even extorting stuff from you. On the other hand, if you do not have that great a need to buy stuff from the market, and these vendors are all lined up, you will find yourself in a far better position to discreetly assess their goods. Now you can have the upper hand in the dealing. Now you can say, show me what you have got. And I want to test your promise. I want to probe deep. Now you are in a position to investigate. Now you can ask sharp questions. And when you start asking sharp questions, then all these contenders to the void, they start falling apart, because mostly they are all fake always. They gain entry into your core only because you never could deeply investigate. When you investigate, you will mostly, even invariably, find that all of them are false. When you find that all of these are false, then you find coexisting with the void even easier. You see, the void appears so intolerable because of the presence of promising options. No? My life is so lonely, and I have 5 contenders to fill up my life with. Right? As long as these 5 contenders appear genuine, life will continue to appear more and more lonely. But if you learn to not be very impatient with your loneliness, with your void, then you get the freedom to inquire into the worth of these contenders. And when you inquire into their worthiness, I am saying mostly you will discover they were never worthy at all. They were just making use of your desperation to somehow fill up the void. Never be desperate. Never be desperate. The more you learn to acknowledge this void, this fact of our existence, the more you find the various options that the world presents being ticked off. None of them are suitable, none of them are suitable. And the more you discover that none of them are suitable, the more your dislike towards the void reduces. A point comes, and it's a beautiful point to come to, when you are content with the void. Not only are you content, you are blissful in the void, and that alone is the real bliss. That does not mean that being in the void you will no longer relate to anybody in the world. Being blissful in the void means that now you can relate to the world without being needy, without being desperate. Now you can have relationships without being frustrated, without appearing weak, without being lonely. Now you're in a position of strength from where you can have healthy relationships. Now you're in a position of strength from where you can exercise compassion. Are you getting it? Vedanta is about living a powerful life, a life of dignity, a life of sovereignty.
I think in that stage, we'll be able to choose the contenders.
Yes,
We'll
yes.
be able to choose who
We,
I
we,
want to be for particular time.
yes, we anyway choose, we always exercise some kind of choice, but mostly that choice is exercised in a state of helplessness, of dependence, of desperation. And whenever you exercise a choice from a state of fear and nervousness and helplessness, the choice is bound to be wrong. Whereas when you exercise your choice from a state of fulfillment, power, blissfulness, then the choices further your bliss.
So I'm going a bit back to the question on elevating our consciousness, which is probably what the whole practice is about on the practical level, on the relative level. And in my experience, there's this certain trap where I seem to get in, which is that after you worked like a certain time and you've raised yourself from whatever you've started from, which in my case was very low, you get to a point where you start being relatively okay with stuff, you know, like life is pretty nice actually, that things you do seem relevant, nothing disturbs you that much, but still there's that kind of a certain sense of not being there, you know. And my experience, like in my life, the moments which have had the most depth and the most purity have been the ones where the suffering has been the deepest. Those have been the moments where like I have really been alive, like really in the real sense of the word. And then I just don't want to like settle in something like, I don't want to say mediocre because I mean, maybe that's not the right word, but what's even the question here? Maybe just about how to keep the destination or the focus on the real thing like clear, even when you don't have some very obvious reasons for working on yourself. Because as long as we are here, we have to work. That's obvious, obviously. But still, I hope this was clear enough.
Yeah, it's clear enough. Thank you. Thank you for the question. You see, the real thing is freedom. The real thing is freedom. Freedom even from the compulsion to continuously remember freedom. When you are in bondage, then I advise you to constantly remember the fact of your bondage. And when you directly remember bondage, then you indirectly remember freedom, because freedom is nothing tangible. Bondages are tangible. Only bondages can be directly and tangibly remembered. Freedom cannot be remembered in that sense. Now, as your bondages start dropping, there is progressively lesser need to remember them anymore. So the appointed task is no more there. A spiritual advisor advises you to continuously remember bondage. And it's a good occupation to have. One says, fine, now I know what to continuously keep in mind. I need to keep in mind the fact of my bondage. I need to have an eye over my bondages. And that gives the mind something to be occupied with. The mind always is in search of tasks. It's a good task to have, a spiritual task. But a task is a task. Ultimately, all tasks need to be completed. You need to be free of all tasks. Even if we do not talk of absolute freedom from tasks, but relatively at least, the compulsion, which is in other words a burden, to continuously remember the task has to reduce. So what is left then? What to do? How to decide? All you are left with is freedom. Just play. No compulsions, nothing to remember. But this is dangerous advice. This advice is only for those who have first of all graduated to that state or that stage in spirituality. If I tell to a beginner, go play, he will say, I'm anyway always playing. You wanted me to be serious. So, initially I would require you to be serious, and once your seriousness has carried you to some distance, I will say, keep dropping the seriousness as well. Just as you are dropping so much that is needless from your life, similarly now keep dropping seriousness as well. A point comes when you do not need to remember, you do not need to be serious about any task. But initially you need great seriousness. That seriousness you could call as sincerity. That seriousness you could call as love or discipline.
But I don't know if this is stupid to ask, but how to determine when you can start doing that? Because I mean, if I'd say that, okay, now I will no more take anything that seriously, then it won't go well at this point.
You continue to take everything seriously. If you are truly serious, if your seriousness has honesty, then seriousness itself will tell you when to drop seriousness as well. It's not a particular moment anyway, it's a process. As you progress, seriousness correspondingly gradually reduces. And you gain a certain lightness, a levity, a playfulness. But that will happen on its own. I only replied because you inquired about what next. That what next need not be known in advance. It will happen anyway on its own if you are sincerely running the course.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I don't have anything more at this point, maybe. Let's return to this.